your father will probably be like 40 pages of interview, but then it is going to be edited. We're interviewing about 70 different people, Stewart, from Westport to Bear River to Riverdale.
Right.
And it's all the information is going to be compiled on a website on the internet and on something called a CD-ROM.
Yeah.
And the high school students are going to use it in their social studies, in local history.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be indexed in such a way that, say, someone is interested in agriculture.
Right.
Now, your interview will be of great interest to them. But if they're particularly interested in vegetable farming, then they can find about your father heaping up the carrots and the turnips.
Right.
Or if someone's particularly interested in oxen, well, your take would be a real good source too.
Yeah, right.
Now, if they want to talk about school, they'll probably go to Nola Jeffrey that I interviewed.
That's right.
yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
it's gonna
right.
be a great
Different
project.
subject all the way around.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
This for our country.
Oh, indeed. You betcha.
People just don't know enough about our country.
You know, and the way things were,
And the way the ancestors were.
yeah.
Okay, we're rolling again, Stuart, if you're ready.
Yep.
Need a drink of water or anything?
No, no. Just tell me what you'd like to know or give me some idea.
You're great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about, you just told us how you met your wife and married
Well,
her, and a little bit about courtship, and then earlier in the interview you mentioned that she lived out with her parents.
Yeah.
And you joined them at night to go back and work in your father's farm.
yeah, until I built my house,
Yeah.
until I got my other house built. I didn't want to live in with nobody.
No.
So there was a piece of property down here in Little River, and that Mrs. Anthony owned, and there was a big like a big hotel on it, and a barn, and it was a good buy. So I was always looking for good buys, and because I knew eventually that I could unload it one way or another and make some money. So I bought it from her, and then I took the house down in sections, and I got a big truck and moved them back to my house where I was going to build my house, and I got everything ready, and then I got some men to help me. We stood the sides up, but I cut them down smaller than what there was there, and the porch that's on my house down here was the porch that was on that hotel outfit there.
Yes.
And I had that after I built the little house back there. I moved that porch from there, back there, and hooked onto that house. And then as years went on and I bought this place and fixed it up, I went and took that porch off of that house, and it's down here onto this house. Probably that porch is 100 years old, but I've shingled it and put doors in it and things like that. But the main thing of it was back probably when it was first built 100 years ago. And so then I took the hotel all down, and there was a lot of big rafters in it and all. And I don't know what I done with it all, but I kept unloading whatever I could here and there till I moved everything out of the house. Well, then the barn was still there pretty good, and I cut the hay on it for 2 or 3 years. There was quite a little place to it, and then I used to have a good pair of steers to fall. The fall feed got good, I'd take them down there and put them in there for a while. Then after about 3 or 4 years, why, my brother come home. He knew I had it. He was just the kind of man I was looking for. So he wanted to buy it. I had no problem. So I sold it to him. I was rid of that. So then he only kept it about a year, and he sold it to a guy down there, and they must be, 3 or 4 houses built there now, ain't they? 3 or 4 new houses built there now. And I got clear of that. So she stayed with her mother and father until I got the house built. And we were so anxious to move that I had punched the shingles all off where I was going to put the front door. And of course the boards was both like that apart, and it was right in dead winter. and we punched the holes, shingles all off in the afternoon, big enough to cut the door, but we didn't dare cut it through, because it was cold enough coming in then. And next day or two come good, and we sawed it out and shoved the new frame of the door and everything right in it. Then it made it a little better. And so we lived there in that till I moved out there on the road. Well, then I had got settled here good, so I said one day, that house is no good to me back there. I'm going to move it. Oh, a lot of people said, you never move that right through the woods. Oh, I said, I'll move her. So one time I had time and I went and I jacked it up, put 2 big logs under it, run a cable around it, back to the end, and fastened the logs so they couldn't come together. And I got her all ready. Then I went and hired a bulldozer. And he came down here to the house, and I took him back the way I wanted to go, and bulldozed the road right through what woods there was, and pulled her out wide, and went back, and I said, hook on. He said, you've got to come down over a side hill. I said, yeah. He says, it would upset. Well, I said, there's no money involved, only what I'm paying you. Let her upset. But she come down over and come out faster than I could walk.
Wow.
And I hauled her right out in the dooryard. Well, my daughter was married then, and they wanted a house. So they run a cement slab kind of off from my house between that and the little one that Emerson had built. And I had it sitting there in the door. I intended to make a garage out of it. But she wanted it. I said, okay. But they had just moved it on the wall. And a man up the road passed away, and his wife sold the home. So then Carol and her husband bought that house, so they didn't want mine no more. So I took a dozer or a backhoe and filled the place up that they had dug out in the walls there. I said if somebody ever went digging there sometime and come across that wall, they'd wonder why that wall was there. They'll never know. And so then Emerson wanted it. Well, I said, I'd like to have it for a garage. I said, I'd like to have it. I said, okay, you can have it. So he towed it over to his place. And he never done nothing with it. And finally, in the end, he burned her up. And that ended the house that I built. Right. But Margaret never liked it in there. Of course, I could understand that. She didn't like it. But she never made no trouble. She was contented and everything. And she knew she could go any day she wanted to go. And come back anytime she wanted to come. And then when I had to move back there to look after my father, a lot of the kids was there and said, you're the best one to do it all. You know how to run the cattle ranch and all this and that. And so I said, there's one thing, one question I got to find out. What's that? I said, I got to talk to Margaret tonight. And if Margaret says, no way am I going to leave this place, I said, I can't do it. Because I said, I got to look after myself as well as anything else. I said, we'll have to arrange something else.
Yeah.
I ain't going to break my home up. And if she can't come, I'm not going to go. So I went home and told her, and we talked it all over. And she said, I can't see why. She said it would benefit us down the line some way or another.
Yeah.
Because she said, sooner or later we can move back out again.
Yeah.
I said, no problem to move. No, I said, I'll be willing to move any time if it suits me, because I don't like it here myself. So that's what we done. And we stayed there till about 5 years after my father died. And then I bought here again and moved out. And then I used both the farms for quite a while until I got the job running that fish meal plant. And that was right from the house. I could dicker in cattle, and I could run the fish meal plant every day. And I run it under my way.
Yeah.
I said to him first, you give me so much a week, I'll keep the gurry cleaned up. But I won't run her Sundays. Don't matter if it's running over. No Sunday work. I don't work for myself Sundays, I'm not going to work for you. Okay, they said. And I said, if there comes a day that I want to go somewhere, and I've got the waste cleaned up, I'll figure that out ahead. If I have to work some nights late, I'll clean it up. I'll keep it cleaned up. Then the next day I can go. So they agreed to that. I run that 23 years. In Dickard and cattle and everything, cars and everything else all the same time. It worked in good. Yeah. I knew I had a paycheck every week. And all I had to do was walk. I done a lot of walking from one end to the other, steady. But I never had to do no lifting or anything. But a lot of people said, how you work in a dirty place like that? The smell. Well, I said, the money smells good.
I always said about lobster bait.
Yeah, well, this here.
Smell
This,
of money and the smell of everybody being
yeah,
productively employed.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, it wasn't so bad.
So the fish waste, when it came in, had to be dealt with almost immediately. There was
Well, pretty well.
yeah.
Pretty well. I seen it. It shows you the difference in fishing, what they have done. I seen it. We got two big pits down there. One held 200 hogs at Saharan, and the other one held about 100. And I've seen them leveled off, right solid full. And the big one, I seen it so full, and they're so long, that the waste all went just like mud. You just couldn't run it through. It was just like mud. And I had to get a backhoe and go up on my own property and dig a great big hole,
Yeah.
and then come down and dig that out with a backhoe in a truck and haul it up there and dump it in that and then bury it. They was so much. And me running steady all the time, 8 and 10 hours a day, and couldn't keep up with it. That's how many fish there was. But now it's closed up because there isn't a fish to run.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It's always been a mystery to me, that brewery plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Closed up completely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Doesn't-
Oh, yeah, it's been closed over a year.
Oh, I didn't
And then
know
it
that.
was only, all they run was like 1-2 days a week, just what Dan Guinea had.
Yeah.
There's no one else, you know. Nobody else got any waste, you see. What little there was, there's a truck come from down the French shore and pick up what little there is. They use it for cat and dog food. So you see, there isn't very much. No.
What about mink feed?
Huh?
How come some of it didn't end up in mink feed, or did it?
No. They, I believe they tried it. It didn't pan out so good,
No.
or something, you know, right? There was stuff in it, I guess, that didn't agree with their mink and foxes. They tried it in the foxes too, but it didn't agree. So they used it all for, they mixed a lot of it at different places in the food, like cattle feed, hen feed. One time they bought so much of it, but then you could smell it in the egg.
Yeah, fishy egg.
Oh, yeah, right, terrible. Yeah, right. But I told them, back at that time, I said, boys, if you keep on doing what you're doing, in 20 years, you'll wish you had them haddock that I'm running through. Oh, they said, you're crazy. Never run Bay Fundy dry. They've run it dry now. Well, they'd go out, like today, come in that night or in next morning with 100, anywhere from 100 to 130,000, the biggest kind of haddock. The fish officers would go down and say, no, you can't use them, they're soured. You've had them in the hole with no ice. Well, they'd bring them up here and I'd run them through for fish meal. Yeah, terrible, you know. And when that went through steam, well, you could pick up chunks, a handful of that haddock, and after it went through that steam, you'd never know that the fish officer said it was soured. But maybe there was only a few on top that was soured or a few in the bottom. The rest probably was good as they ever was. But after they went through steam, oh my, they smelt something great, you know. But that's what they done, and they kept on it. Fishermen has ruined themselves. They've ruined themselves. Yeah. Between them and the government, they've ruined it all. And now they wish they had them. Yeah.
Kind of a sad story.
Oh yeah, you see, they was probably 10 or more fish plants. There's only one here at Little River, in Dan Kinney to Westport. And they don't have hardly any. A lot of days you can call them up down here. If they got any fish that you can go buy, 10 pound or 20 pound, haven't got none. No. Boats might be in Might go out next week, they might have some. Some will come in with nothing. What they do, they don't have very much. Till they've ruined the whole thing. And the herring was the same way.
Yep,
There was a fortune made in herring, just taking the roe out.
yep,
The rest was dumped in. Go for fish meal.
that's what you handled, after the roe was taken out.
Yeah,
that's the
right,
herring.
yeah. Right. And now, there's no herring. They can't kill all the young. You can't kill your chickens to have hens too.
No.
No, that's what they've done. I don't know what they're thinking about, you know.
So who owns the Gurry plant? Who was your employer?
Well, it first started out with 4 men. One man from Halifax, Bill Sears, he was the head of it. And then there was Keith Raymond
Yep,
and Ed Twigg and Carlton Harris. Them was the ones that owned it. Then they sold out to National Sea Products. And I went with the first ones, and I still stayed when National Sea bought it. And then National Sea, just here back a very few years ago, sold it to Dan Kenny. But I had quit when they sold it. Dan, I was all through
yep.
before Dan Kenny got it. I never worked for Dan Kenny. I was always worked for National Sea Products.
So in your young married life, when was your first child born?
17th of February.
How much later after you were married?
3 years and a half after that,
Yeah.
Emerson come.
Yep.
And then after that, I tell a lot of people, they laugh over it, I said, after that, they come just like rats.
How many did you have altogether? I should know
7.
how they all are.
7. Yeah, 7. 3 girls and 4 boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So compared to what your mother's workday would have been like, what was it like for Margaret in her young married life?
Oh, well,
Any different?
quite a lot of difference. Yeah. Yeah, Margaret never done no picking berries. What we want, we bought. My mother done all the picking. And Margaret didn't, she might have the first year carried a little water, but after that, she never had to carry any more water. And she never had to wash no clothes by hand. And so it was, take it right through the whole thing, it was altogether different.
Yeah.
Where my father and mother went to bed 7 o'clock at night or I shouldn't have said 7, but 7:30 or 8, no later than 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
They was abed. We didn't go to bed till 11, 12 o'clock. And there was that much difference. And we had heat day and night. We was just as warm at night as we was in the daytime, where they let theirs all go out. They was so scared of fire. And we used wood up until about probably 18 years ago. We burnt all wood. And then it got to the point where I was busy and didn't feel like cutting wood. I had plenty of wood, but so then I put a Kemac on my kitchen stove and put a floor furnace in. Well, I only kept that about a year, and I didn't like it at all. So then I done away with the kitchen stove, burned wood, bought an electric stove. And that panned out pretty good. So then the floor furnace I didn't like right from the start, because you'd come in cold, your legs would be burning, your back would be cold. I said, this ain't no good. But when I first wanted to put something else in, instead of an air blast we used to have first, I went to buy a furnace, and he didn't have one. And that's why he talked me into buy the old furnace. He said, put it in for a week. If you don't like it, he said, you ain't got to pay me for it, put it on the lawn. We'll pick it up the next week. But I kept it for about a couple of years. Then I bought a new wood furnace. I put that in. I run that up until Margaret had the stroke. And then I had enough to do, enough on my mind without having to run down cellar and fix the furnace and this and that, so I just put electric heat in.
Yeah.
I wired the house all over again for $220 and put electric heat in. It was quite expensive,
Yeah.
but it was awful good heat, and if she felt a little cold, which she minded the cold a lot, sitting in the chair all the time, she knew enough how to do it, what to turn the thermometer. And she'd kind of gauge if it got too hot, she'd turn it back. So, I mean, the electric worked good, but it was awful expensive. In about 4 months was our worst, was almost $1,400 in 4 months. You know, it was quite expensive. But then in the summer, it cut right down to mere nothing. So, about $2,000 a year cost us for hydro. But that was everything, you know. Electric stove and any electric appliances, you know, and all worked in out of the one bill. So that was pretty good. Oh no, she had it pretty good.
Did she work outside of the home at all, Margaret?
She worked a few months when Emerson had the fish plant.
Yep.
It was right across from the
Yep.
house, so she thought she'd like to go over there and go to work, so she went over there for not too long, just a little while.
To pack fish, maybe?
Pardon?
To pack fish, maybe?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah. She worked there for, what, about a couple of months, Emerson? Oh, yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. She might have worked there a year.
Yep.
You know, whenever he had fish, 'cause she could whip over, whip back, get it right, might say right in the dooryard, you know.
Yeah.
But she liked that too, but she was a woman that could go in a big crowd. And she wouldn't be there a half an hour, and just seems as if everybody knew her,
Yep.
you know. And anywhere there was a time, from Digby to East Ferry, around Christmas time, she was their main Santa Claus.
Oh,
They always called her to come be Santa Claus. And all the schools that had their concert, she was their Santa Claus. And she liked that.
yeah.
And when we went to exhibitions, if there was anything doing and they needed one or two women in for judges, they'd always call her. She was their head one. And she enjoyed that, you know. Yeah. Oh no, she had a good life up until she had the stroke.
And she had that way too prematurely, way too young.
64.
As I recall, yeah.
She was 64 when she had it. Yeah. If she'd had it on her left side, but the wishing ain't no good, but if she'd had it on her left side, see, she could have talked, because most of the people can talk on the left side.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen that way. She had it on the right side. And they always, what I've talked to different people about strokes, that they tell me that there's only 1 out of 100 that has any pain afterwards. But oh, she suffered something terrible. Screech and cry, just get to sleep, wake right up, screeching and crying. I'd have to get her out of bed, on the side of the bed. Oh, she'd just shake. The pain was that great. And all at once she'd put her hand up like that, it was all over, it all stopped. And she always, from the time I brought her home, for about, maybe 3-4 years or 5, she had a terrible pain down that side of her face. Oh, and I'd say to her, is it like a Charlie horse? She said, yes. So, one night she wasn't very good. I took her up to the hospital to outpatients, and there was a doctor there that was in Digby for a while, Dr. Edgar.
Yes. remember
That
him?
was a good doctor.
Yeah.
I felt some bad when he left Digby. I had been to him, and I'd had Margaret to him, and I had even had her to Halifax. And there wasn't one thing that they could do. And I took her this night, and Edgar was on call. And he overhauled her and all, and told me this and that, and I told him about this pain she had down her face. And I said, it's something terrible. Oh, he said, I can cure that. I said, you can? Oh, yeah. I said, I'll give you a prescription, go to the drugstore. So he gave me a prescription. The next day I went to the drugstore, and I got them pills. Just give her one at night. After 3 days, she never had that pain again. Oh, he was a good doctor. Yeah, right. Yeah, just before he left, he was talking about going. I went in one afternoon, made an appointment with him, talked. I tried to persuade him not to leave Digby. But he said, I want to raise a family. And he said, I like it here. But he said, it's cost me $1,000 a month He said, just to stay and be in this building. He said, I ain't making enough. I just can't do it. He said, I got to go somewhere. And that's why he went to the United States. He was first talking about going to Bridgewater.
Yeah.
And then he changed his mind, got a job in the States. And I've talked to different ones that been connected with him, and he said he's doing real well.
Yeah.
Real well. Oh, he was a good doctor. Yeah, I've had a few people that told me that they went to him and found it was good satisfaction, you know. But
So your Margaret didn't really learn how to talk again.
Pardon?
Did Margaret never learn how to talk again?
no.
But you could communicate
Oh,
quite well.
very well.
Yeah.
We never had any problem. You could come in the house and she'd try to tell you something. And they wouldn't know a thing. And they'd say, do you know what she's saying? Well, I said, I can find out right quick. So I'd tell her to come over where I was, and she'd come over, and I would look right at her and ask her if this is what she wanted to tell him,
Yeah.
or ask him. She'd shake her head, yes. How do you know? I said, if you live with anyone long enough, and you look right in their eyes, you can pretty well read their mind. There never was a time she come to me that I couldn't tell what she wanted. Never. I could tell her, but I always asked her, is this what you want? She'd shake her head, yes. If it wasn't, she'd shake her head, no. You know, but it's hard to make somebody else believe this until you've been through it. Maybe if I'd have went to somebody else like her, I couldn't tell a thing no more than the other people could. But I lived with her all that time she had the stroke, and I mean, you learn ways and everything, you know. I always had heard that you could read anyone's mind, but I thought to me that it sounded quite foolish. But I have learned it, that I could, if I looked her right in the eyes, I could tell her just exactly what she wanted to know. No problem at all. Yeah.
So back to, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about your mother.
Yeah.
Did you guys always keep Sunday as a special day at home when you were growing up?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Right.
What would Sundays be like? What would the Sunday be like at your house?
Oh, well.
Child?
On Sunday, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, Sunday morning, my father got up earlier than he did any other day of the week. And he would do his chores all up, come in, change his clothes, and lay down on the couch and read the Bible. And till it was, they always ate about 11 o'clock. When he'd have his dinner and walk around a little bit, go back and lay down in the afternoon, read the Bible again in the afternoon. And around 3:30, he'd get up, change his clothes, and start looking after his chores. And not every time, but if they was United Church, he'd dress up and go to United Church.
And take everybody with him?
No,
Nope.
went alone.
Yep.
Yeah, right, went alone. Yep, United Church.
Yep.
Yeah. But he never done one thing on Sunday.
Nope.
When I first started out, when I had took pretty well the head of everything over at Dorn, which he never ever, he must have thought it was satisfactory, because he never once said, don't do that. Never did. He always thought what I done was good.
Yep.
And it must have satisfied him, or he would have said something. So anyway, in hand time, I hayed different than he did. He just mowed so much and made sure he had to tend that to get done before he mowed any more. And if he had a heavy piece of hay, he wouldn't mow that till he thought the weather got good.
Yep.
When I started, I said, I can't hay that way. He said, why? I said, it takes too long. I said, I'm going to take a chance on it.
Take a little more of a gamble.
Yep. When I come to a piece, it didn't matter what it was like. It went down. I didn't care if it was a foggy day. It went down just the same. Now, I used to mow a lot on foggy days.
Yep.
He didn't like it, but he didn't say nothing. He says, you're taking an awful chance. Maybe next day, sun come out great. So I done that. One time, I had a lot mowed down. Had it all ready to haul in. Sunday was a beautiful day. So I started hauling it in. He thought it was pretty hard for me all alone, trying to go load hay. But my sister would tramp it. She done all the tramping hay. She was the one that stayed home all of her life, never was married. She always tramped the hay for my father and tramped it for me.
Yeah.
Always did. But it was loose hay, you know. So he seen me loading that alone, pitching it off behind then in the barn and trying to mow it away. So he rigged up and he helped me haul 2 load in. After he done that night he said, don't never haul hay in again. He said, and don't never look for me again. He said, I done that. But he said, I'm awful sorry I did. He never done it again. So that's the way he carried on, you know, right? But he done it that way all his life and prospered, lived, you know. Yeah.
Things to be learned from that.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Can you remember your family suffering at all in the Depression, or were you lucky?
Oh
you
no,
were a farm
no.
family?
Depression never come involved.
No?
No.
What about the Second World War?
Never made no difference.
No?
No. My father was always, mother was situated good enough.
Yeah.
They never had a lot, you know. Don't let me make you believe that
Yeah.
they had mansion of a home and all. It was just a home, that's all, with everything in it that you could live comfortable and all and be warm. But them times there wasn't nothing extra anyway. Nobody at them times ever thought of a mansion of a home till these later years. It was as long as you had a home and it was comfortable and warm and no wind or snow blowing in it, why, it was to make a living, that's all. That was their main source at them times. But they always lived comfortable.
Yeah.
There was always plenty to eat at all times. And a lot of times in the fall, he bought stuff ahead of time, like flour. They bought sugar by the 100 pounds and molasses by the 5 gallons or something like that, you know. They always had plenty ahead. Maybe have 2 or 3 bags of flour ahead. And my mother made bread all the time. My wife done the same thing. We never known what baker's bread was till these late years.
Yeah.
You know, it was all homemade stuff, everything. Yeah. But that's why I see such a change in life today, you know. It's so much different.
What was Mink Cove like compared to Sandy Cove on one side and Little River on the other? It was a much smaller community?
Oh yeah, yeah. Mink Cove was the smallest one of all. Little River was quite a little bigger, and both like Sandy Cove, you know. And there was a few that farmed, and there's where my father sold the most of his vegetables. All them vegetables went to Little River.
To Little River?
Yeah, right, because they fished out of there. You see,
Yeah.
pretty well all them people just fished for a living. A lot of them,
Yeah.
and then they had to buy everything, you know. Right.
What about the places in Sandy Cove that had tourists, the tourist homes?
They had, they was, I think, five or more hotels. And every summer they was full. And Margaret worked in one all one summer. That was before her and I got together. She
Yeah.
worked in one all one summer. And,
Do you remember which one that was? Do you remember which one that was?
yeah, it was over on the other side of the cove. It was Harry Johnson's hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, Margaret worked there. That was full. And then just across the road from that, Chip Saunders had another one.
Yeah.
And later years, Osborne Morehouse and his wife started one on the lower side of the road.
Yeah.
Well, that only lasted like a couple of years, and that was all over. Well, then you come over into the Cove more. I had a cousin, Scott Cipher,
Yeah.
Scott Village, they called
Yeah.
it. He run a summer hotel. And over from that, the man that used to be all their postmaster, Eddie McKay,
Yes.
he run a big hotel in the summer. And then there was a regular hotel where they took travelers in at night and all, was Red Cipher.
Yeah.
And then you went on the other side of the Cove going to Bay Fundy, Amity Eldridge run a big hotel there.
Mm-hmm.
And tourists stayed there pretty well all summer, you know. And he raised about everything he used. he always had a big flock of hens. He had his own beef, put in a big garden, had all of his own and everything like that. And they never had no children, just him and his wife.
Yeah.
So they hired everything done outside. He had one man that raised his whole family working for him $1 a day. Ernie McCulley. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What would you think today to go out and ask a man to come work for you one day for $1? I guess you'd want. Oh, my, yes. Well, it's like I tell a lot of them. I've told Emerson and all the kids, I've cleaned septic tanks for $2.
Yep.
Take me 2 days. Time you took the cover off, dip it all out in buckets, and carry it way out in the field and dump it, and wash the septic tank out, put the cover all back on. Take me 2 days for one. Get $2 out of it.
Yeah.
And you tell fellas like it then, they say, you must have been crazy. Huh? I said, $2, I'm telling you, meant a lot then. When I was small enough, I was out Sandy Cove one evening, there was an insurance agent come there, John Cross, and he wanted me to take out an insurance. So he talked and talked to me, and it was $25.10 for a year. A 20-year endowment. Well, 20 years, I figured I'd get $2,000. And I seen me the first few years I had it. Well, I was all summer saving 10 cents here, 5 cents here. I've seen me be in the store. You could buy a chocolate bar that long for 5 cents. And I'd like to have one, but I wouldn't buy it because I said that 5 cents is going on. If I could make a quarter up, a quarter of a dollar. And sometimes I had to borrow $10 in the fall to pay that insurance. I'm telling you, it was hard.
But it was important to you to have that insurance?
Yeah, I thought I was somewhere.
Yeah.
But if I'd have known what I known afterwards, I would have quit that so quick. So my wife and I, we kept talking about it all the years I paid for it. Well, I said, I got to keep it a year afterwards, after 20 years before you get the check. But I said, we'll have $2,000 come in all at once. I said it'd be quite a prize. And we looked forward to that. So the time come. And I got a check from them. $700 and some dollars. Oh, I said, they're doing some crooked work somewhere. Of course, I couldn't understand it good enough why. So I took it to the lawyer. He read over it. No, he said, nothing wrong with the policy. I said, there ain't. No, he said. He said, it's 20-year endowment. He said, you had to die in order to get that. Man, you imagine how I was set up. And I had paid in over $800. And I got $700 and some dollars back. Oh, that was the sickest I ever was in my life. To think the times I had to scrape and pull to get that much money in the fall. In October, 20th day of October. $25.10. And I got back $700 and some dollars. Oh, gee. So, I've learned in time gone by, in any insurance, it's only as good as the fine print. If you don't know what the fine print is, you don't even know what you're getting.
Yeah.
My.
Can you remember any colorful characters in Mink Cove or Sandy Cove or Little River?
Any what?
Any really colorful characters that were people in the community that were unusually, just unusual characters or
Well, they,
sort of legendary.
back years ago, and I've heard my father say, and I only knew one or two, that there was an awful lot of suicide here in Little River.
Yeah?
A lot of suicide. And at that time, they claimed that it was married in their own family. Mixed efficient people. I've heard my father tell a lot of it, you know. But later years, they've now is never heard tell none of it now, and they've married out, you know, and made things a little bit different. Then they used to marry their cousin, stayed right in their own family, you know. Of course, then you couldn't travel nowhere. But now today, you could be here today and talk to a girl in Halifax and invite her up tomorrow.
Yep.
You know, traveling is so free and so easy to get at, but them times you couldn't do that, you know. I used to, when I was going with that girl in Rossway, at night I used to walk through the Rossway. I'd like to see the girl that walked Rossway now. Oh, gee, yes. Yeah, it was all walking then.
How about the Jerome story? Did that mean anything to you?
No.
Or that was no?
No. All I know what my father said, that they found him on the beach and some black bread alongside of him. Yeah. That's about all I know about that. And they always wondered how he got there, where he come from, or what went on, you know, but I don't think they ever found out. Back here a few years ago, I picked a dead man up on Bay Fundy Shore.
Yes?
I tried to find out, seen the Mounties and tried to find out when they took his body to Digby, if they could find out who his parents was or anything, so we could have wrote him a letter and told them all what had happened and all, but they couldn't find out. They buried him in Digby. Yeah. There was a foreign boat down here off of, well, it'd be a boat off of Tidville somewhere down there in Bay Fundy that blew up. There was quite a few come ashore. And I was hauling rockweed from Sandy Cove Beach. And we had a road in the wintertime that from where we lived, we could grade up through all the swamps and come out in the last bay field. And my father and cousin of mine and myself, we had built just a road to use the oxen on up the banking on the further end of the beach. So I went up in the wintertime one morning before daylight, and when I got in the first field, I always stopped and looked off of the banking there. And I looked off and I seen this thing down on the rock. And of course at that time I thought it was like bark off a fir tree is what it looked like, kind of yellowish. But I thought nothing of it, so then I went down and went on the beach. As soon as I got the foot of the beach, there was this man laying down over the beach, down over a big rock. His head hanging this way and his feet the other way, and he had no clothes on, except a little pair of shorts. They was down to his knees. And whatever had happened in the blowing up or hitting a rock or somewhere, right across here, he was sculpted right across there. It just seems it would lift right up and drop back on, you know. Well, and he was froze hard as a rock. His flesh looked just like a pig after he'd been scalded and dried out, you know. And I said, what am I going to do? Just coming daylight. So I said, I can't leave me oxen here, it's too cold. And I hate to drive way out to Sandy Cove, so I went out to Sandy Cove to a man named Huey Morrow. Mm-hmm. And he had a rug up in his barn, so he went and got that. We went back over and picked him up and put him in the rug, brought him out to the fire hall. That's when it was right in the cold. Put him in that and called them out, and they come down and got him, took him, but I never found out. Only that the boat that blew up and all, he was aboard of it.
What year was that?
Pardon?
What year would that have been?
Oh, gee whiz. Oh, I would say roughly right around 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right around, because we were still living. Oh, it's more than that, because I wasn't married. I've been married 56 years. Yeah. It was about, maybe 62 or 3 years. That's about how long ago it's been. But it didn't bother me much at the time. But after I got home, in a few days, I got to think about it. You know, it bothered me a lot. I said I wouldn't want to pick up another one. No.
Well, I'm just going to maybe ask you one or two more questions, Bert, because we've gone past your dinner time.
Oh, don't worry about that. Dinner don't mean nothing to me. No. I see me, most days I don't eat nothing until 2 o'clock.
Getting
No.
close.
Oh, yeah, I don't think nothing about that. No, I don't think nothing about that. No.
What did your family do for a good time when you were did they set aside some time for fun or a good time, or?
No,
Where
that
is
was
it?
the last thing we spoke about.
Yeah,
All of us kids growed up, we never had a sled in our life.
no,
My brother that's living now, of course the rest, I don't know what they done. You know, they was kind of grown up by the time him and I come along. But we used to take barrels. And of course we had a big mountain right back of the house in Hardwoods. They'd come a sleet storm or all. We used to take barrel staves and go up there and get onto them, and we'd ride down that mountain, right straight down way out on the meadow.
did you make yourself a set of skis, or something like skis?
No,
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 just-
nothing like that. Just lay on them
Yes,
and let it go.
Yeah.
And then we'd go skating. We had a big swamp down below the house, and in the wintertime that would flood and then freeze. We'd just go down below the house and go skating on that. And sometimes there'd be someone from out here in Mink Cove or Sandy Cove would come over there because they didn't trust the lake, that it was froze hard enough, but the brook didn't matter because you'd only have a foot of better water. If you broke through, it didn't hurt you. So a lot of times there'd be a crowd come over at night or in the afternoon, get a crowd to go skating, you know. Yeah.
where did everybody get their love of music in this family?
Well, I don't actually could say it. My mother could play the organ. She had a lovely big organ. She could play the organ. And Margaret was quite musical. Margaret could play the organ, some guitar a little, and she was a good singer. And then the two youngest girls, Maxine and Donna, was good singers, but when they was little. And if they'd have kept on, they'd have got somewhere. But as soon as they got a little older to get out, they just quit every bit of it.
Yeah,
And Emerson's the only one that's hung in it,
yeah.
right? Of course, he kept practicing. He liked it, and he kept practicing all. And if you don't do that, well, you don't get nowhere, you know, right?
Well, that is about all the questions I have for it, but Chris might have a few more.
You should just find out, do you remember anything about the Robert Cam? The shipwreck off Lake Midway? When was that?
No,
1946, I think.
I should remember it.
I think only one man survived.
Yep.
They found most of them on the shore there, frozen.
Oh, yeah.
That was a trader out of St. John, wasn't it?
Well, I can't just remember.
Right.
I can't remember that at all.
No,
I
it
don't.
seems to be like people from Centerville remember this story.
Oh, yeah,
more than
yeah,
anybody else.
Yeah,
does.
right, yeah, they would, yeah, right, yeah,
It's an interesting story.
yeah,
People
right,
have been kind of
yeah,
interested in it.
yeah, they'd remember it more.
Yeah, I think.
I do have one other question, which is probably a bad one to end on, but what was funerals like? If somebody died when you were a child, can you remember how that was?
Well, the first one I ever remember was my father,
Yeah,
when he passed away. I stood right over him when he passed away,
yeah,
and, I called, at that time was Ramsey's funeral parlor in Digby. So, Ramsey himself, at that time, didn't do too much himself. He had, another fellow that done it all. I just can't think what his name is. I know him well enough. And he come right down, and he embalmed him right there at the house. And they brought the casket right there and put him right in the casket. And then when it was day of the funeral, why, the hearse come, picked him up and took him out to the grave, you know. That's the way it was then, yeah.
it's interesting how some people are spared seeing their first death for many, many years. and some
Yeah,
people-
the first one I ever seen.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. But then I stood over him when he passed away, and I stood over my mother when she passed away, and I was the only one in the hospital in her room when she passed away. I don't know why it seemed that way. The nurse was in there, all the children had been there and gone out, and they wanted me to go out and have something to eat. I said, no, I'm not going. I said, I'm going to stay here till she passes away. I'm going to be here.
that was your mother or your wife?
Wife.
Your wife, yeah,
Yeah, and I stayed there, and they all went out, even the nurse went out.
yeah.
She just made two little breaths. She was gone. I pressed the button, the nurse came in, I said, she's gone. She put the sounders on her, said, yeah, and then she called the doctor and he came in. But I never knew, till just lately, that the greatest way they tell is look in your eye. I never knew that. But I noticed that
Wow.
I noticed that he done that.
Yeah.
And I had to ask the question why. Well, there's something about in the eye that if that don't show any light or something, you're dead.
Yeah. Well, your eyes can tell you a lot when you're alive, even about your state of health.
Oh my, yes.
But
Right.
you have very nice sparkly eyes. So
Yeah,
you can tell
right.
you're healthy.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, I feel pretty good. Yeah. Right. But I've always took pretty good care of myself. I've worked awful hard, but
You walk many miles?
oh, I've walked millions and millions of miles. When I run that fish meal plant, from Friday to Friday, I wore a pair of knee rubber boots. Wore the bottom right through them.
Wow.
Yep. Well, it was steady walking. If you wanted to keep it running and all, you had to walk steady to make sure this is running, that's running, the other thing's running, because it's all machinery the whole length of it. And if one stops, you frig the whole thing, because it ain't like one could stop and the other would keep on going. It can't. It's straight from the first to the last end that everything would plug right full. Burn the motors out and everything else because it's all run by electricity. You know, it was quite a thing.
Well, this has been a great interview.
Yeah,
Not
right,
often you meet somebody who's
right,
figured out exactly who
Yeah.
he is and what he wants to be
Right.
from early on. And
yeah, right.
then has a
I broke my leg one time trying to load a roller on a truck, and I knew better. But I was used to hooking wagons behind trucks and all, and just dropping the tongue on the back end or the bolt down through it and hurrying. I just didn't think. And I was backing it up a bank so I could get it high enough
Yeah.
to run it aboard the truck. And when it got up so far, and I was standing in between it, you know, like this, and when it got up far enough, why, the roller just simply rolled right under. I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to run over the top of me. So I stuck my foot in underneath it to stop it and grabbed it by the frame to hold what I could. And my brother-in-law was driving the truck. He jumped right out and he come around and got on the end of it. And he was a strong young man. And with what he lifted, what I could lift with my hands, I pulled my foot out from underneath of it and broke her right off. I never felt it when it broke. But when I got on, it was a ton truck at that time for the run board out of. And I got in the truck, and I had to put my foot out on the run board. I couldn't get any more. And every hole he'd go and drop in there. Oh, pain, something terrible. And I had a pair of rubber boots on, knee rubber boots. And there was one man there that I had working for me. And when we got home, he got me in the house. Well, he reached down to pull that rubber boot off. Oh, I held that pain for a long while. Yeah.
How old a man were you when that happened?
Oh, about 31,
Yeah,
right after I was married.
yeah, not a good time.
And I laid for 30 days, right on my back, in the bed, 30 days. And my father done all the chores and everything. And the only thing that kept Margaret and I a living was I had some cows, and he milked them and separated the milk, fed what calves it was, and shipped the cream. Every week he'd take the cream out to the road for the footer to come pick it up. And we'd get a check for the cream. That's the only thing. Of course, we had meat and everything that my father had already had ahead. We had plenty of that. We never went hungry, but it wasn't moving along good. And they put a cast from my toes clean up to here. And I'd get so tired laying there, and I'd say, Margaret, can you put your hands under my foot, and just move it a fraction that'll rest me? She'd go to move that, and I'd say, oh, put it back. It pains too bad. But today they'd pin it, it wouldn't be nothing.
Yeah.
But that's what you went through then. And then a few years after that, quite a few years after that, I was running the mill plant, and I had a hose hooked on the boiler, and it kind of got out of my hands like some way or another. I never could figure it out, and went down my rubber boot. That was what was painful. It burnt every bit of scalded, every bit of skin right into the bone.
Steam, was it steam?
Yeah, steam hose.
Yeah.
Oh, me with woolen socks on and a rubber boot. Oh man, that burned. Well, I thought that the rest of the day, and that night I'd go crazy. You pain that bad. So I called the hospital, our outpatients are where the new McLeod building used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I called them, and they said, you come up at 9:30 tonight, and we'll look after you. So I got up there about 7:30, and I waited till 9:30. Then the nurse come in and said, we can't do nothing for you. You'll have to go over to the hospital, see if you need a doctor. Oh, gee, I was fit to be tied. So I went right out, Margaret and I said, drive me right over to McLeod's house. I went to the house. His wife come to the door, and I told her, asked her if I could see the doctor. She said, sure. So I knew Dr. McLeod well, and his wife too. So I went in, and I told him what had happened. I said, that place you built over there is the worst thing that ever happened to Digby. He said, that right? Oh, yeah. And I told him the story. Boy, he didn't like that. And he fixed me up and eased the pain right up. Whatever stuff he put on it and filled the place all in with this stuff, oh, it helped it, bandaged it up. I thought I was a new person. And it took it quite a while before it ever healed up all the way. So I've had a lot of things happen to my leg. But I've lived through it just same. Yeah.
Well, I think we've gone through about 2 tapes now.
Yeah, right.
Each
3
end.
hours now.
Maybe we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, I've told you about all I know.
Well, that's our goal, by the time we're finished. Yeah, we've probably done about 16 or so by now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's a great project.
Yeah.
But we're not always as good as Stewart.
No.
Some people can tell their whole life story